Welcome to the Six Hats podcast, where I, Dr. Shami, a lifestyle and nutritional medicine family doctor, will talk about how women strive to find balance each day by juggling their six roles, being a woman, mother, daughter, partner, business owner, and professional. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Six Hats podcast. And I'm really honored today to have Dr. Samantha Pillay join us. Now, she's a consultant urologist, author, businesswoman, advocate for female leadership, and South Australian of the Year nominee in 2022. And just a little bit about Samantha. She finished school at the age of 16 and commenced studying medicine at the University of Adelaide. Now, driven to take on challenges, she became the first woman in South Australia to complete the adult Urological Surgical training program, despite physical limitations from congenital hip dysplasia. Now, whilst training in urology, Samantha saw a need for a greater focus on incontinence treatments for women and a need for specialised care. She became the first urologist in Australia to exclusively specialise in female and functional urology, establishing Continence Matters in 2002, and subsequently building her single surgeon practice into a centre of excellence. Now, Samantha has devoted her career as a surgeon to treating incontinence, reducing the stigma, and educating doctors, health professionals, and the community. Now, she's also a single mother, surgeon, running a business and a household who enjoys writing in her spare time. And she's the author of 7 books, including 3 Amazon #1 bestsellers. So welcome, Samantha.
Thank you, Shami, for that introduction. It's lovely to be here.
Awesome. So Samantha, I'd love for you to start on your journey. You mentioned a couple of health struggles that you had to encounter. How did you do that and to actually study medicine despite having those limitations, let alone surgery?
That was a little bit crazy. The thing was, it was from birth. So I was born with both hips dislocated or dysplastic, and I didn't walk, and then it was discovered late. And so as a result, there was concerns over whether I actually would walk, and I had a lot of surgery. I started school in a wheelchair and, did progress through from the wheelchair to calipers to walking unaided with a significant limp and a lot of pain and a lot of restricted mobility. So even when I was at school, I couldn't sit on the floor, or if I got on the floor, someone would have to come and get me to get up, and I'd go up the stairs on my bum and stuff like that.
Wow.
By the time I was at uni, I could go up the stairs one after the other, but I would really pull myself up using the rails. And then my hips gradually deteriorated over the decades due to sort of arthritis and pain. And I became very, very limited, but put off having a hip, when I was in my 20s, fusion or a hip replacement sort of in my 30s. And I was really almost getting closer to 50 by the time I finally had a hip replacement, way past when I probably should have had it done. There were a lot of factors. I was a single mom. I was running a business. These things are pre-existing conditions, so they're not covered by the insurances that when it comes to income protection as a doctor. And anyway, lots of things. So I did really put it off. It did get pretty bad to the point that I really used a trolley that I used almost as a walker to push myself around the hospital. I had to think strategically about my days. I chose an area of operating where I could do most of my operating sitting down. Everyone sort of said when I was doing medicine, well, you can do anything you want except for surgery. And I've always been the sort of person that if someone says that's what I'm doing kind of thing. So it did. Getting dressed or having a shower or trying to wash my hair or drive became sort of really bad. So it did get to the point that's really bad. What's been insane is that 7 years ago, I had a hip replacement, and having never experienced being pain-free in my life from birth, I had no concept of it. So, and it's really interesting, because I see patients that have things from birth. Children don't see things like, I don't know, I didn't ever think about wanting to be pain-free. It wasn't kind of in my vocabulary. I didn't know or understand or appreciate it. So, I call myself a bit of like a red wine, getting better with age. I can now do things that I never used to be able to do before for the first time in my 50s, which is really bizarre, like stand up straight or walk for lengths of time or do various things. So it is a little bit odd to be able to do things that I've never been able to do before. Just be able to take weight through my leg. I remember the day after surgery or in hospital sitting upright on a toilet and being able to see myself wee for the first time. Very strange, because I was fixed in a certain kind of weird position that couldn't allow me to sit at 90 degrees properly. And anyway, lots of little things. So it's been a real discovery, learning to do things. What it's done is really increase my productivity, because really half of my brain was being consumed by managing the pain. And probably surgery was the only career I could have done, because unless it was intense, I really was distracted by the pain. So the fact that I had such a concentrating focus in my profession, it was something that allowed me to be able to block out the pain, my job, because I didn't really use painkillers, because I didn't need to use painkillers, because I didn't know what it was like to be without the pain. It's kind of a weird thing to try and articulate. So I kind of learned, a whole lot of stuff that I just really had no concept of before. But I've always pushed myself really hard, studied really hard, very intense focus and application to things. And I'm sure that was my way as I grew up, from being when I was a child. I was very academic, allowing me to be able to, unless I was giving 110%, I was distracted by the pain.
Wow. So in a way, it allowed you to focus elsewhere from the pain. That's incredible. Yeah. That's incredible. Yeah. I'm just thinking about quite a few patients just living with chronic pain, what that looks like, and also where the focus is. And it's so interesting you say that you can focus away from it in order to function and just get on with it. I'm just in awe that you literally didn't have a surgery until recently. I'm just in awe that actually happened. That means it's years and years of chronic pain. So
I had a lot of attempted surgeries as when I was sort of like 3 or 4, but it was like reconstruct the hip. So when I was walking, I walked with a lot of a limp, because I had bone grafts to try and create those joints, but those joints weren't, I had limited mobility. The other hip I haven't had replaced, but it was so much better than the surgery on that hip was much more successful. So I don't have all my pain and mobility sort of severe limitations were with the hip that I've had replaced. So, the surgery I'd had as a child had not really had allowed me to walk. It was great. It allowed me to walk, but I had a lot of pain and a serious limp. And now I still limp, but not to the same degree.
Wow. And what was that like? I know we're diverting a bit, but what was that like in a school setting, just looking different?
I mean, apart from the fact that I couldn't play sport and I couldn't sit on the floor with all the other kids for the assembly, I had to sit on a chair at the back like the teachers did. And I handed out the programs in my school uniform on sports day where everyone else was on sports day. And the teachers, with sympathy, took me out, for a drive on camps where everyone else was going out and doing activities. And, I couldn't wear high heels and I couldn't dance. And if I went to town, everyone would be walking off at a pace and I couldn't keep up with them. I mean, so yeah, there was, apart from the fact that I was also, one of the few non-Caucasians in my school, the only non-Caucasian in my year, the only person whose father had black skin and, talked with an accent. And yeah, so there were lots of things that sort of made me stick out a lot and not necessarily feel like I was in one camp. And you don't really realize that, I think, as a child, but when you look back, it's pretty easy to kind of see how that made me stood out. That probably made me to the point where I never really cared what other people thought. So I didn't really seek approval, which was why I ended up probably doing urology and being a surgeon, and didn't really need to sort of fit into anyone's stereotypical sort of models of what a young woman maybe should do in 1985, when I made my selection to go into medicine and start medical school. So I think that probably now, as this stage of life, you can see how everything slots into probably at the time when you're starting your course, you don't really appreciate how those things are influencing your decisions.
So true, so true. I'd love to move into your career in surgery. And, often when you think about women going to surgery, they might just get a lot of people saying, are you sure? Is it going to affect having a family? There's a lot of doubts around that. So what would your best piece of advice for any woman thinking of pursuing a surgical career?
I agree. I think those societal expectations very much have been creating stereotypes and discouraging women from surgery. It's okay to be a doctor, but not okay to be a surgeon. It's okay to be successful, but not too successful. It's okay to leave the family a bit, but not too much. And all these sort of limitations that we put on with surgery. The thing is, that's exactly how I saw the world. So when I started having surgery, people would say, well, oh, you want to do surgery, do you? Don't you want to have kids? Now, I can tell you that's not the sort of mood that the guys were met with when they announced they wanted to be a surgeon. And with that, I was sort of starting out sort of thinking, oh, well, I really want to be a career. So, maybe I don't want to have kids. What I came to realize after a long journey of mother guilt was in actual fact how wonderful surgery was as a career. So I actually do some writing on the spare time, and occasionally, rarely when I get time, I do a little, articles on my website and stuff. And one of the articles I wrote was why surgery should be the number one career choice for women.
Wow.
In medicine.
360. Wow.
When I think about the opportunities given my son, the ability to travel, the ability to have a nanny and never have to use childcare, the fact that I work for myself, have school holidays off, I don't have to apply for leave. I've been able to afford, the school I wanted and any, extra school activities that I wanted, and the opportunities that that's given both me and him, and the autonomy that it's given me and him, and the independence and security and the ability to call the shots. He came into my work every day until he was 18 months of age and all that sort of stuff. I look back and I go, my God, there's so many careers in medicine where I never would have been able to do any of that.
So true. There's no way, what I'm even thinking, even as a GP.
That's right. A lot of GPs, I know that, and I'm not going, well, I take school holidays off. I could take the sports days off, and various things like that. And I'm like going, well, hang on. If I look now at being a mum, surgery was the number one choice.
That's incredible. That's so exciting to hear. And if women are hesitating, not just because of motherhood or just the fear of it's being male dominated and just that culture, what would you say to that, Samantha?
Well, we always think it's changing. There's still a lot that can be done, but there's always changing. And there is a significant critical mass now as far as mentorship, allyship, support, as well as avenues to actually be able to seek support and action if there is any problems that arise, as well as a significant cohort of people that are extremely supportive, men and women, and, the College of Surgeons. So things are definitely changed and changing. There's always room for change. And I think that culture is becoming extinct. It's a dying culture. It has to die, and it will die.
Yeah.
And it will die very quickly because there'll be a critical mass, and there's a critical mass. I mean, when I went through, I was the first female to do urology in my state. There was very few women who'd, just a couple of women had done urology for the whole of Australia. There's very few women. By the time I finished my training, only 4% of surgeons were female. I'd never even worked for a female consultant. There were other female registrars training, but I'd never seen a female surgeon. I was the first female consultant I saw operate in a theatre.
Wow.
When I finished my training and I operate.
That's incredible. And clearly it's changing now.
It is. It's changing now. So I finished, sort of around 2000 and more than 20 years ago. So it's definitely changed. Obviously it's slow. I mean, in over 20 years, it's gone from 4 to 14%. It's not like leaps and bounds. That 10% is still, it's only increased by 10%. But I think the thing is that you don't need to fit anybody's role model. So that's what I would say to young women wanting to do surgery. First of all, the times have changed, but you make it what you want. You create how it should be. You create what a woman surgeon should be. You create and define how you should work, what the constraints are, what the opportunities are. You will redefine the workforce. You don't have to change to fit it. You rewrite it. You rewrite the book.
I love it. I absolutely love it. It's almost like creating an entrepreneurial mindset rather than just following a rule book that was created years ago, which I absolutely love. Absolutely love. Which leads me on to my next question about your business, Continence Matters. I'd love for you to share more about that vision. What sort of drove you to create that?
Well, incontinence gets taught very poorly. Generally, a lot of medical students will say, oh, we had one lecture on urology and they never mentioned incontinence. We really didn't have any training because the curriculums are often very acute care based and they don't really have any idea of what to do. Now, if you could think about the fact that 1 in 4 Australian adults are incontinent, it's more common than diabetes, asthma, hypertension, depression, and even obesity, or close to really probably obesity. When you look at the weight that doctors get on the treatment of diabetes and hypertension,
yes, so true.
It's not given its weight, and it has huge impacts on people's social stigma, self-esteem, workforce participation, as far as physical ailments, but also psychological and contribution to the economy. So the cost to incontinence is billions of dollars. It affects a quarter of the population, and yet it's not covered in medical school. I mean, it's just reserved. If I said to you, oh, there's a disease this common and costs the community, billions of dollars, and we don't get to teach it, you just would go, well, that doesn't make sense. I can't believe that, but it's true. And then people go along to the GP training, and often in their GP training, they may get 0 or 1 or an hour or something on it. So people are very, very underdone. Now, it doesn't stop there. You go and train in urology, and it's all prostates and stones and cancers. So even when you get to the specialist training, it doesn't even get its just desserts or recognition. So it's really sad to see such an important condition that affects so many people, and ironically, and so many women suffering in silence. Whereas I'm sure if the gender balance was different, it might have been treated better, taught better, remunerated better, and a whole lot of other things, and researched better. But it hasn't really got the attention that it should have got. And so when I finished, I decided, look, I really wanted to have flashing lights and sirens. So rather than joining a group practice, if I made a practice called Continence Matters, it's like that in itself is a statement. This is an important condition. It is worthy of a specialist or subspecialist practice that just deals with that and nothing else. And I did the bold move of going out and subspecializing from day one, not doing general urology. And I've also developed sort of a continence GP who I've trained that works alongside me to sort of see patients that, may not need surgical treatments, pessaries for prolapse or other non-surgical treatments for incontinence and other related conditions. So it's been a great way to provide an exclusive service that focuses specifically on patients' needs and that condition. So it's never a matter of like, oh, well, while I'm there, maybe if I mention my incontinence, you're coming to Continence Matters because you've got a problem, and that's what we deal with. So with that had led me to then go on a path to try and improve the education. So that I've given community talks, GP education, specialist talks, and now I've even developed an online course for GPs so that GPs can do an online, there's sort of short video courses, 42 short sort of videos to work through a curriculum and do all the sort of training that should be taught in their curriculum that isn't taught. So I've really enjoyed being able to promote the education across the healthcare sector, physios, etc., to ensure that there's a broader base of people who are able to deal with it, because not everyone does need a surgery, and it's just not the most efficient utilization of resources, and it makes my waiting list longer if people that could get assistance elsewhere don't get the assistance elsewhere, so that people get that help and not end up needing to see me. My greatest dream would be to do myself out of a job. I might be able to get it. I don't think I'm going to be able to get it done by the time I retire.
Amazing. So all those details are on your website, which we'll announce at the end. Is that right, Samantha?
Yeah, I've got 2 websites. I've got a website that relates to Continence Matters, continencematters.com, and there's lots of resources there for patients. There's videos, there's information about continence conditions and the services we offer, but a lot of stuff that people can educate themselves, because that was another way I wanted to be able to create a lot of educational resources, and people from all around the world, health professionals and people, use my website, and the link to the course for GPs is there. The other website relates to the books and my advocacy for promoting leadership in women and ending gender stereotypes and educating young girls.
Fantastic. Phenomenal. I'm definitely going to check out that website.
That one's just samanthapillay.com. That's just my name.
Amazing. Which kind of leads me on to, you became South Australian of the Year 2022 nominee. What does that mean for you, Samantha? That's quite a phenomenal achievement.
Well, that was like one of those out of the, blue kind of phone calls where it's like, what? How did that happen kind of thing? So someone nominates you and there's this sort of rigorous selection process, and then suddenly there's down to 4 state nominees, and you're just like going, this is way bigger than anything I ever really imagined. How on earth did I end up here? It was an absolute honour to be involved in that process, because you get to meet the other nominees and the Australian of the Year. And there's not just the Australian of the Year category, which I was in, but there's local heroes and older Australian and younger Australian of the Year categories. And you suddenly surrounded by ridiculously amazing people doing unbelievably amazing things. And that process for me was like, oh, wow, hang on, what am I doing? I could be doing like 10 times more. Like, so for me, it was like, yeah, I was like, oh my God, like, look at all these people. Look what they're doing. Oh my God, look at what they're doing. Oh, what am I doing? I'm just like, dragging my heels here. I could be doubling what I'm doing. So it did give me a lot of inspiration and vision to imagine and dream and bring to fruition projects way bigger than I had even imagined. So it was following that the following year that I was one of the finalist nominees for Australian Telstra Business Awards for our medical practice, which was a great honour, and then went on to publish more books as well. And so there's a lot of, and I've got more things on the plan. So it really allowed me to think a lot bigger, I think was one of the wonderful things I took out of that experience.
That's incredible. So you mentioned about advocacy for gender equity. Love for you to dive into that, because that kind of leads you onto the books, would you say? Like, was that the inspiration for the books?
So obviously through my own experience, there was a number of different biases related to a woman in surgery, a woman doing surgical training, let alone the guilt that society puts on you if you have a career that's, more than just averagely successful or demanding, or how people perceive whether you're feminine or a whole lot of things. So I felt that there'd been this myth, which I've thought to before, that surgery wasn't a great choice for women. And I was like, well, hang on, yes, it's not mutually exclusive. It's made me a better mother. I've got better skills that I wouldn't have had if I hadn't been a surgeon. It's given me, I used to say things like, well, getting up in the middle of the night, I'm overqualified.
Exactly.
Dealing with a stressful emergency, I'm overqualified. So after my surgical training, being a single mum was a walk in the park when it came to parenting, making decisions, dealing with a crisis, making life and death decisions quickly is what I'm used to. So, if it's suddenly ice cream flavors and nappies, it's like not life and death decisions. So I felt that I was overtrained. So I wrote a book called When I'm a Surgeon to try and build that self-belief in young girls. And I decided, I consciously thought about what I could do. And I felt that, there's so much that I could do to try and end gender stereotypes, re-educate people and tell them what they're doing wrong. With that can be a little bit negative. And I decided that being very time limited, I would get bang for my buck if I actually did something, for very, very young girls, like 3 to 8 year olds, and wrote a children's picture book, and stopped the gender stereotypes forming in the first place, so that girls just had this inbuilt belief and expectation that being a female surgeon was completely normal. And then all of these things wouldn't follow. It was a little bit of a long game as far as, I'm probably going to be dead by the time they finish their surgical training. But I decided that was probably the most bang for my buck as far as my time went, as in addressing or impacting or having some impact on this issue. I also felt there's so much that is being done. The College of Surgeons is trying to address the issue, and there's a lot of people doing great work in this area. And I felt that maybe at that age, there wasn't as much that was being done, and that maybe I could bring something to the table and add to that whole picture of where we're trying to get to eventually. And so that led to the When I'm a Surgeon. Then I got really excited and decided to do a colouring and activity book, because I loved puzzles and word searches when I was a kid, and I could put stethoscope and all the really cool words in it. And then I thought, that was a lot of fun after it's finished. Now what? And so I thought, I like business, so I'm going to do When I'm an Entrepreneur and be able to write about business, because I've really enjoyed running a practice, running a business, learning the business side, the financial sides of running a business. The business is exciting. So if anyone knows a business, if anyone runs a business, they'll think, oh my God, it's endless, it's stressful, and it's exhausting, and the work never stops. Well, it's a bit like being a surgeon. The only thing is, when you're a surgeon, it gets easier and easier and easier and easier and easier, because you've done it 1,000 times. And someone who likes the action like me, that's just not exciting enough. Whereas if you own a business, it's much harder than being a surgeon, because every day is like day one. When you're a surgeon, you only have one day. When you're day one as a surgeon, you're very, very nervous, and it gets easier. But for people who know when they run a business, you walk in every day and you go, okay, tell me about today's problems.
That's true. So true.
So that led to When I'm an Entrepreneur, and then an activity book. And then I decided to get into STEM, because that was my other passion. And that by now a whole series was starting to emerge. And I went to When I'm an Astronaut, and promoting STEM in schools and developing educational resource for teachers that they can download for free from my website to use in schools to promote STEM activities and various things which I commissioned. And so it's been a great opportunity to then be involved in the space sector, which is an area that I never thought that I would have any connections on, or go to space conferences, which was a nice change to urology conferences, and do a lot of exciting things. So it's great. I've had a little bit of a breather this year as far as getting the books. So When I'm an Astronaut was the last book out, and now I'm in the midst, and I'm hoping to get another 5 books out next year.
Amazing. I love what you said about normalizing it. You're absolutely right. The more we talk about it, the more young girls see women like you on, whether it's television or in books, or they hear about it, it becomes their norm. Their reality changes. And it's so true, Samantha. So what you're doing is just phenomenal, because you're changing a whole new era of women coming through going, of course I want to be a surgeon. That's why wouldn't I? Rather than why am I doing it? I love that. And I think the more we normalize it, on so many levels, it doesn't seem such a challenge. It doesn't seem like a mountain in front of you. That's just phenomenal. So which kind of leads me on. You've mentioned so many different roles you play already, from single mom to being a urologist, to running a business, being an author. So how do you manage your stress levels, Samantha?
I have lots of lists. So I'm a big list person. And so I'm pretty organized, and I manage every time. I get up early. So sometimes I might get up at 4 a.m. So
Wow.
I'm a big early riser. I'll get a lot of stuff done. I don't drink alcohol. I'm probably at the stage where I don't really go out that much or party. I don't watch television. So people go, oh, now it's starting to realize how you can get all that done. So I have quite a few. I'm very disciplined. I'm a hard worker, and I love work, and I'm an academic. So if I had a Sunday at home and I could knock out 14 hours from dawn till dusk, then getting up and having something to eat would be an annoying interruption to my day of working from home. I'm a workaholic. That is how I get it done. And I love it. I don't feel like I need not to work. You know, I consciously try to sometimes do something that's not work related, but it's an effort, and I generally don't make enough effort to do much fun stuff. Well, what other people would call fun stuff, but I would call fun stuff sitting down and sorting something out on the computer or something. That'd be fun for me. So I do lots of lists, and I think that being happy is a really important way to keep stress under control. I love problem solving, so often keep the causes of stress are things that arise in the workplace or the house or the business or various different things in lives. And so if I actually embrace problems, I like finding the solutions. So having a problem isn't a problem, because I love problem solving. So my biggest downfall would be I wake up, I'm a poor sleeper.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I wake up and my mind is suddenly going about anything, just whether it's anything. And I have trouble getting back to sleep. I have no problem getting to sleep, but that would be my biggest downfall, is getting enough sleep. I enjoy my coffee, but I don't have too many vices.
It sounds like you're just loving everything that you do, which is awesome.
I do enjoy it. Yes.
So much joy that it's actually not work. It's actually
yes, that's right.
Joy. Absolutely. And actually, I see many patients who are probably not enjoying what they do. And it's time to have a check-in and go, what do you want to do that brings you the fulfillment that you're looking for? And many people are stuck in roles that they may not want to be. And as a result, work is stressful, instead of turning it around and going, like, I'm a bit like you. I do actually love problems. I see it as a puzzle, and running a business, I just see it as in one big puzzle, which I absolutely enjoy and love. And people go, oh, isn't it really stressful? Because they've always linked business and stress together. And I go, changed it around. You can do it differently. You can reframe it depending on what your
learning opportunity.
Yeah, it depends what your expectations are. So you're absolutely right. Amazing, amazing advice, Samantha.
I think one of the things I would also say is that were really crucial for me is not separating parenthood from work.
Oh.
So a lot of people are like, oh, I want to work more. And then it's like, oh, no, I need to spend more time. It's that work-life balance is how much time you spend with family and how much time you spend with work. For me, they're being completely integrated. So, my son might help me write a speech. He might help me work on a project. He might come to board meetings. He's been to more urology conferences than anyone could imagine. And so he's been heavily involved in my work from day one. And as a result, is given public speaking and debating and has a huge, vast skill set that he wouldn't have had if he wasn't involved in my work, whether he's, taking messages, writing texts, doing spreadsheets or various things. So I think there's a huge opportunity to teach your children, and that can allow you to spend a lot of time for the work. So that was it. One other thing I think is really important to share.
What a lovely piece of advice. Amazing, Samantha. Before we let you go, where can people find you?
So as I mentioned, I've got a medical website if you're looking for health-related information. So that's continencematters.com. And then samanthapillay.com is where you can find information about the books, download free colouring pages, teachers' resources, and some of the articles that I've written. And that samanthapillay.com website is the one with all of my social media links as well, which relate to my gender equity and promoting women activities that I use social media for, not for health, medical sort of things.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Samantha.
Thanks, Shami. Fantastic time chatting to you. I've loved it.
Remember that this is general advice only. Please see your healthcare professional for more information. So what's your take-home message today? Remember, it's all about progress and not perfection. And are you suffering from stress? Visit the Usawa Learning Hub on usawa.com.au for more resources on how to de-stress, re-energize, and reclaim your health. Enjoy the journey.